My mother is the baby of the family, with 7 children before her. She dropped out of high school at the end of her junior year and had me out of wedlock when she was 18. I realize that's not very unusual now. However, in 1967, it was not common and definitely frowned upon. I am forever grateful that she received the support of her family to keep me. My mother is one of the strongest, wisest women I know. Thanksgiving has always been her favorite holiday. When you're growing up in a family of little means, Thanksgiving is better than Christmas because there's no pressure to give the perfect gift. This holiday is about gathering around the ones you love and sharing in a delicious meal together. It's about recognizing and remembering those who cannot share the day with you, as well as honoring those who can. I fondly remember big holiday meals served with smiles and stories of holidays past. One of the most vivid memories of my mom is her preparation of our family's recipe for stuffing. I remember standing by my mother's side while she was cooking, watching her chop and dice, season and taste, all the while sharing memories about making this stuffing with her mother and how my grandmother had made the same recipe with her mother. I remember listening and feeling so close and so happy to share in this tradition. There was always laughter and even some tears, and I often wonder if this is part of the seasoning, what makes it taste so good. My mother's love for Thanksgiving was passed along to me. With 2 daughters of my own, it is now my turn to tell the stories, to share the recipe and the tasting. I love that I can pass down the history of our family and bring our ancestors to life again for a few precious moments. Generation after generation, the daughters of my family move, not only out of their mother's home, but reluctantly far away from their mothers. My great-grandmother left her parents in Ireland for an entirely new country. When my grandmother married my grandfather, they moved 20 miles outside of town, which in the early part of the 20th century seemed like 200 miles. When my mother married my father, a Navy man, we moved every few years. We were always very far away, anywhere from a few hundred to a few thousand miles. The tradition continued when I married my sailor and moved away too. This is what daughters do in my family, and last fall, my oldest daughter was no exception. At 18, she had graduated with honors from high school and was heading off to college. I found myself wondering how had this happened so quickly. Hadn't I just brought her home from the hospital? In the blink of an eye, there I was, standing in the driveway, waving goodbye to my baby girl, as she and her dad drove off towards her future. Suddenly, almost as quickly as she had entered my life, she was gone. I walked inside our too quiet home and I cried. I cried and I cried and I cried some more. My funny, brilliant, and loving child was off to start a new adventure, one that didn't include me, one that wouldn't have all the details, that I wouldn't have all the details on, and one that would allow me to only catch snippets when she was able to find time to talk. Holidays had become the hallmark of our visits. I called my mother, my best friend. She listened and comforted me with her soothing words. She tried to explain that this was our new normal, and I would get used to it. And I cried, "But I miss her already, Mama." And she replied, "No, baby girl." And then it dawned on me, she really did. My husband and I had packed up our car and moved from Florida to Maryland 23 years earlier, 11 and a half hours away, 758 miles from my mother. I left her standing in her driveway, waving goodbye to me. We were excited about our adventures, and she would no longer be such an intimate part of my life. This would be our new normal, and she was right. We both got used to it. And now I'm in the middle, the mother saying goodbye to her child, and at the same time, the child talking to her mother, realizing that I had done this exact same thing years ago. For the first time, I could truly see in both directions. A child excited for the adventure ahead, striking out for true independence and only looking forward. A mother excited for her child, yet so incredibly sad for myself and feeling a sense of loss, so great it was almost crippling. I had always known my mother loved me, but this new understanding of the depth of her love for me was staggering. For Thanksgiving, I will have both my daughters with me, my oldest home from college, and my youngest, who is now turned 18 and looking forward to her future, and yes, leaving on her own adventures. We will make our traditional stuffing, and I'll tell them the family stories. I will call my mother, and she too will be making the stuffing. We'll talk about my grandmother, and we'll talk about my girls. We'll both laugh, and we'll cry. The sharing of generations of family history in one simple dish. And in the sharing, we will connect 5 generations of women, binding us as only family history can, and erasing the miles, the hours, and the years that separate us in our daily lives for at least a few moments in time. And I will be in the middle, 3 generations behind me and a generation ahead of me. Someday my daughters will have their own children, and I too will be able to say, I know, just like my mother and her mother before her, and I will. I will know, and in the knowing, it will be my turn to comfort and soothe another generation of independent and strong women.